James K. Polk was the 11th President of the United States. He was born in 1795 in the state of North Carolina. And as a young man, he came to Middle Tennessee with his family. When he got to Middle Tennessee, he began to study law under Felix Grundy. Now, Felix Grundy at that time was one of the most well-known and well-respected lawyers in the state. After studying law, James K. Polk became interested in politics, and he ran for and was elected to the Tennessee State Legislature. He served as part of the General Assembly. But then, when Andrew Jackson was president, Polk would run to be congressman from the state of Tennessee, serving in Washington. He won that election, and when he gets to Washington, he is eventually appointed or elected to become the Speaker of the House of Representatives, which you may remember from another video is the third most powerful person in the United States government. While he was Speaker of the House, James K. Polk and Andrew Jackson worked so closely together that James K. Polk earned the nickname Young Hickory to Andrew Jackson's Old Hickory. Now, Polk would serve 7 terms as congressman from Tennessee, and when Andrew Jackson left office as president, when his term was up, he was going to return to Tennessee, and he encouraged Polk to come to Tennessee also and to run as governor of the state. But Polk and his wife enjoyed life in Washington, D.C., and they wanted to stay there. But we know that Andrew Jackson was a strong-willed and persuasive person, and eventually he did persuade James K. Polk to come back to Tennessee and run for governor. And he did, and he won that election. But he really wasn't happy being in Tennessee. He enjoyed life in Washington, and there's a presidential election coming up, the election of 1845. And Polk is hopeful that he will be nominated to run for vice president, and that would be his way back to Washington. But Polk isn't nominated to run as vice president in 1845. He's elected or nominated to run as a presidential candidate in that election. Now, Polk wasn't given much of a chance to win. In fact, he was called the dark horse candidate. And a dark horse is the horse that no one thinks is going to win the race. But sometimes, against all odds, the dark horse wins. And that's really exciting when that happens. And James K. Polk, the dark horse, would win that election and become the 11th president of the United States. He would make his way back to Washington, D.C. At his side would be his wife, Sarah. Now, Sarah came from a pretty wealthy family in Middle Tennessee, and she was a true asset to James K. Polk. She was attractive. She was very intelligent. People in Washington were very impressed with her ability to hold engaging conversations about politics and political matters, and that was kind of unusual for women during that time. Now, they say she was a strict Presbyterian and didn't like drinking or dancing, which was kind of a thing when they had these big Washington parties. She didn't allow any of that. But nevertheless, she was very well loved. Everyone in Washington loved Sarah Polk. She was one of the most popular first ladies. Now, while James K. Polk was president, he ran on the idea that he would only serve as one term. But during that 1 4-year term, he was going to accomplish great things. Now, when we hear James K. Polk today, the term most closely associated with him is manifest destiny. And manifest destiny is just a fancy way of saying, hey, we're powerful, it was meant to be. And what was meant to be was that the United States would grow and the expanse of our nation would reach from the Atlantic to the Pacific Oceans. James K. Polk believed that it was the destiny of this land to stretch from sea to shining sea, no matter the cost, monetarily or the human cost. And James K. Polk made manifest destiny a goal of his presidency. And while he was president, we would add the land that would eventually become the states of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and after a very short and very lopsided war with Mexico, we would add California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. All of those western territories would become land belonging to the United States. During his presidency, we would add over 22 million square miles to our nation. Now, when James K. Polk's term ended, he kept his promise, and he only ran for one term of office. He was going to return to Tennessee. Sarah had been at work fixing their mansion for their retirement. Sadly, shortly after James K. Polk left office as president and returned to Middle Tennessee, there was a cholera epidemic, and he developed cholera, which was deadly in those days, and he died just a few short months after leaving the presidency. Today, when we think about James K. Polk, we mostly think about manifest destiny, the good and the bad, how he grew this land. We don't hear a lot about James K. Polk's presidency, but he set out to do exactly the things he ran on as president. His presidency, though, would kind of get lost in the shadows because he died so shortly after his retirement, and looming on the horizon is the great, big, bad, disastrous American Civil War, and that was going to overshadow everything.